When we speak of power, most people rush to think of armies, wealth, or grand titles. Yet the most enduring power is not forged in metal or written in decrees. It lives in the invisible realm of the mind. Ambiguity is its kingdom. To understand this, you must first see that men and women are creatures of restless curiosity. They cannot abide uncertainty. It gnaws at them. It keeps them turning events over and over in their thoughts, searching for a meaning just out of reach. The ruler, the strategist, the lover who learns to place another inside this quiet storm, commands something more lasting than obedience. He holds their attention. Consider how often people lose influence because they rush to explain themselves. They fear being misinterpreted, so they pour out every detail, every intention, until nothing remains hidden. At that moment, they believe they have solved a problem, yet what they have truly done is free the other person from their orbit. A clear answer, a neatly tied conclusion, allows them to turn the page and walk away. They are no longer compelled to return, no longer wondering what you meant, no longer waiting for the next chapter. Clarity, though comforting, is a release. Ambiguity, however, is a tether. It leaves a door half open, a candle flickering in a corridor that may or may not lead somewhere important. The mind, unable to resist, keeps walking toward that light. This is not mere accident. It is a deliberate art. To hint rather than declare, to suggest rather than confess, is to plant a question in another's soul. They will water it with their own attention, their own speculation, their own hope. That is the leverage of the subtle hand. Look to courts and councils, to salons and marketplaces. Everywhere men seek favor or alliance, you will find this principle at work. The negotiator who withholds his final position until the last breath keeps every listener leaning forward, anxious for the outcome. The advisor who speaks in careful riddles ensures that his counsel is sought again, for no one is certain they have received all of it. Even in matters of affection, the suitor who reveals every secret, who exposes every thought, may satisfy a moment's curiosity but starves the future of intrigue. Mystery is not coldness, it is the lifeblood of fascination. There is also a deeper current within ambiguity. It creates dependence. When people cannot pin you down, they return for guidance, reassurance, explanation. They study your expressions, your silences, the pauses between your words. You become the center of a puzzle they cannot abandon. They replay conversations in their minds at night, trying to decode what you meant, whether you approved, whether they still stand in your favor. And as they do, they bind themselves to you more firmly than they would through oaths or contracts. They become volunteers in their own captivity. Yet ambiguity is not the same as confusion. A wise strategist does not throw smoke for its own sake. He shapes it like a sculptor molds clay. Each pause, each withheld detail, each carefully measured phrase is a tool. Too much fog and you lose sight of the path. Too little and the spell is broken. The aim is to leave just enough shadow for imagination to fill in the rest. Those who master this can guide others without seeming to push, can draw them near without a single chain. History whispers examples for those willing to listen. Kings who issued proclamations with clauses so delicately worded that rival factions spent months debating their meaning. Ambassadors who returned from negotiations with messages couched in language that inspired both hope and dread in their sovereigns. Even in letters between allies, absence of one clarifying sentence kept friendships alive through decades of speculation and longing. Ambiguity stretches time. It allows influence to outlast the moment of contact, and there is a peculiar pleasure in it for both sides. The one who wields ambiguity enjoys the quiet control of knowing more than he reveals. The one ensnared by it, though often frustrated, also delights in the chase, in the possibility that one more conversation, one more encounter, will finally yield the answer they seek. Ambiguity creates a stage on which both can play, a theater where loyalty, curiosity, and desire all rehearse their parts without ever reaching the final act. When you withhold the neat conclusion, you compel others to lean closer. Their minds become instruments tuned to your smallest signal. A glance carries weight, a silence speaks volumes. They measure themselves against your elusive approval. They wonder if the story is complete, or if another page lies hidden. This state of alert anticipation is fertile soil for power, for in it they are never fully at rest, never entirely free of your gravity. Power is rarely about the force of arms or the sharpness of law. It is about steering perception, shaping the way events are remembered, framing how stories are told. To govern this domain, you must understand that people hunger for tales with a clear conclusion. They crave a verdict that settles every question, final line that closes the book. Yet the moment you deliver that tidy ending, you release them from the spell of your influence. They walk away satisfied, and their thoughts are no longer chained to you. The cunning strategist resists that temptation. He chooses to own the narrative, to shape its beginning and middle while leaving the last page unwritten. When you dictate how a story is presented, you direct the flow of meaning. You become the author of context, the arbiter of symbols, the voice that assigns significance to each act. By controlling the narrative, you place yourself at the center of interpretation. You guide how others speak about you, how they remember events, how they justify their feelings. But the true mastery lies in stopping short of the finale. Let them hear your opening and your rising action. Let them taste a hint of resolution, yet deny them the certainty of a sealed ending. In that space of suspense, you hold their attention hostage. Observe how this principle plays out in councils, courts, and even in the quiet exchanges between two individuals. A leader who lays out every intention, every future step, removes all mystery and forfeits leverage. The people around him no longer need to return for explanation. They have the entire map, and their curiosity fades. A wiser figure releases information like a riverbank guides water, slow, deliberate, always leaving a bend out of sight. His followers speculate about his motives, wonder about the next move, and in their wondering, they bind themselves to his path. It is the same in personal relations. When you argue your case to its bitter end, when you explain every action until no question remains, you relieve the other of the burden of reflection. They have all they need to depart, but if you craft your words so that meaning glimmers just beyond reach, if you leave space for them to wonder whether they have truly understood, you create a current that draws them back. They revisit conversations in their minds, searching for a clarity that never fully arrives. Their investment grows, not because you demanded it, but because you left an opening their own imagination rushes to fill. To control the narrative is to set the frame through which all else is seen. Even silence, if intentional, can be part of that frame. A pause, a withheld answer, a letter that ends with a question rather than a statement. These become instruments more persuasive than declarations. They allow you to suggest that the story is larger than what is visible, that there is more to learn, that the truth is still unfolding. The absence of closure becomes an invitation, urging others to keep you in their thoughts, to seek your voice again. History teaches that rulers who mastered this craft endured beyond their reigns. Chroniclers remember them not only for their victories, but for the way they left events open to interpretation. Their reputations grew precisely because they were not fully defined. Every generation felt compelled to revisit their words and deeds, to decide anew what they meant. This lingering presence is a quiet dominion over time itself, achieved not by finality but by the deliberate withholding of it. Even in negotiation, the same principle grants strength. Offer your terms, explain your reasoning, yet leave a margin of uncertainty. A subtle suggestion that another card remains unplayed. The other party will weigh their position against possibilities you have never stated. They will hesitate, rethink, adjust their own stance in anticipation of what you might reveal. By refraining from an absolute conclusion, you widen the space in which your influence operates. There is also an artistry in knowing how much to reveal. Too little, and you invite chaos. Too much, and you invite dismissal. The balance is found in shaping a narrative that feels complete enough to be convincing, yet open enough to remain alive. This approach keeps minds working, emotions simmering, loyalties questioning and renewing themselves. Those under its spell cannot place you neatly in a box. They must keep returning to make sense of you. And in doing so, they keep feeding the very power you hold over them. When you hold the pen of the story, but never write the closing line, you invite others to imagine endings on your behalf. Some will picture triumph, others betrayal, but all will keep you at the center of their thoughts. They will discuss, debate, and speculate, ensuring that your presence persists in rooms you have not entered. Control the frame, sculpt the middle, leave the ending in shadow, and you transform mere influence into something deeper, a hold over the stories people tell themselves about you and about the world you have shaped. Men and women are rarely chained by force alone. They are held most firmly by the threads of their own curiosity. When you allow another person to believe they have grasped the whole of you, their interest begins to wither. Certainty is a quiet dismissal. It tells them there is no reason to lean forward, no reason to return for more. But when you leave a fragment concealed, when your words carry a slight tremor of mystery, you plant a question that will not let them rest. They will seek you out again, not because you command it, but because they cannot bear to leave the puzzle unsolved. Imagine the court of a cunning prince. He speaks, but never fully. He grants a smile whose meaning is just beyond reach, delivers instructions with a single piece missing, offers praise wrapped in a riddle. Each gesture is a small key that hints at a lock somewhere else. Those around him find themselves circling back, eager to discover if they have understood correctly. Their loyalty is no longer demanded. It grows from the desire to uncover what still lies hidden. They become willing participants in their own captivity, held by a hunger for explanation that only the prince can satisfy. This law applies far beyond palaces. In the common dealings of friends, partners, rivals, and allies, the same thread runs through every bond. The one who speaks all at once, who empties their chest of every thought, risks collapsing the tension that makes a relationship vibrant. There is no longer a reason to listen carefully or to interpret silences. But a person who knows the value of withholding, who understands that not every sentiment must be displayed on the table, casts a spell that keeps others attentive. A glance, a carefully chosen pause, a hint of meaning that stops just short of completion. These are tools of quiet influence. Curiosity is not merely a passing emotion, it is an engine of pursuit. It drives people to cross oceans, to decipher texts, to unlock codes sealed for centuries. Harnessed wisely, it can make them cross rooms to be near you, to ask the question they have been rehearsing in their minds, to examine every word you have left dangling in the air. Each time they return, each time they seek clarification, they invest more of themselves. That investment makes them reluctant to leave, for leaving would render all their searching a waste. The more they try to reach the center of your meaning, the more they entwine themselves in your orbit. But this art is not a license for chaos or cruelty. Keeping someone guessing does not mean deceiving them without purpose. It means feeding their imagination with just enough uncertainty to keep the connection alive. It means mastering timing, knowing when to let silence do the work, when to speak half a truth, when to let an unanswered question hover between you like an unsheathed blade. A strategist of influence measures these gestures carefully, shaping them so that intrigue strengthens the tie instead of fraying it. Observe how storytellers wield suspense. They do not reveal the fate of their heroes too soon, for they know the listener's heartbeat quickens in the pause before resolution. They drop clues, withhold answers, and build an appetite that keeps the audience pressing forward. This same rhythm can inhabit your words and actions. If every chapter of your life is an open book, interest fades. If some pages remain sealed, eyes linger over the cover, hands itch to turn the leaf. You become not just a person, but a living riddle. History records how commanders, philosophers, and lovers have used this principle to draw people close. A general shares only fragments of his plan, so his soldiers remain vigilant, waiting for the next instruction. A thinker leaves gaps in his writings, compelling disciples to gather, debate, and extend his ideas. Even in private letters, a simple line left unfinished has been known to bind hearts for years, each recipient wondering what thought might have followed if ink had not run out. To keep someone guessing is to lend them a mission, the mission of understanding you. The atmosphere created by a well-placed enigma is one of heightened awareness. Every word is weighed, every pause examined, every look studied for meaning. Those around you begin to perceive layers in even your smallest acts. They start to believe there is always more, that each conversation is a step toward something yet unrevealed. And as they continue to seek, they bring energy, attention, and even loyalty to your side, offering them freely as the price for insight that never fully arrives. There is a quiet precision in the art of holding back, and those who mistake it for coldness misunderstand its purpose. To withhold is not always to wound. Often it is to shape, to guide, to lead another's mind to places it would not reach if every door were flung wide at once. Men are drawn to clarity, yet they are also nourished by the tension of what is half hidden. When you choose not to reveal everything, you are not committing an act of spite, but exercising a craft that gives weight to your presence and gravity to your words. It is a discipline that requires foresight, patience, and an understanding of the forces that govern attention and allegiance. Imagine a sculptor at work on a figure of marble. He does not strike wildly at the stone, nor does he rush to expose the full form with reckless speed. He chips and smooths, pausing to consider how each fragment removed will alter the whole. Strategic withholding is a similar discipline. The leader, the counselor, the lover, all must learn when to speak and when to let silence hang like a curtain, when to offer a fragment of truth, and when to leave the remainder cloaked in shadow. It is this restraint that keeps the other engaged, searching, attentive, willing to lean forward for the next revelation. Those who reveal everything too soon deprive their words of power. A command explained in exhausting detail loses the aura that makes it compelling. A confession poured out without measure ceases to stir curiosity or respect. In seeking to be completely transparent, one often becomes forgettable. But when you measure your disclosures, when you allow just enough to surface while guarding the rest, you invite people into a dialogue that is alive, a relationship that breathes. They sense that something valuable still lies beneath, and so they remain, waiting to earn the privilege of seeing more. This principle is most visible in diplomacy and politics, but it breathes in quieter rooms as well. Consider a mentor who offers advice in deliberate fragments, letting a student wrestle with the meaning before revealing the next step. The lesson endures because the student has labored to grasp it, and the mentor remains a figure to be consulted again. Or think of a companion whose stories are rich with implication, yet never fully complete. Their company becomes magnetic because it promises discovery with every meeting. In both cases, the measured withholding is not cruelty, it is a gift, a way of deepening the bond by allowing anticipation to do its work. There is also a protective strength in this approach. Not every thought deserves the daylight. Not every plan should be unrolled before its time. When you reserve pieces of your mind, you shield your intentions from careless eyes and keep adversaries guessing. Even friends can be better served by a boundary, for too much exposure can dull admiration or provoke a burden they are not prepared to carry. By keeping certain matters within your own grasp, you maintain freedom over your next move and dignity over your inner life. Yet this is not a license for indifference or manipulation without purpose. The restraint must have structure. It must serve a design larger than ego. To withhold only to confuse or punish invites bitterness. The discipline lies in understanding the proportion between revelation and reserve, in sensing when a pause will sharpen attention and when it will only freeze trust. A master of this craft reads the room, watches the tilt of faces, listens for the undertone of voices, and adjusts the curtain with care, never tearing it down nor letting it grow so heavy that light is lost entirely. In matters of leadership, strategic withholding allows a vision to mature before it is unveiled. When a commander speaks in fragments, hinting at the greater design, he keeps his soldiers vigilant and invested, each action part of a larger story yet to be disclosed. In friendship, a touch of mystery preserves respect, preventing overfamiliarity from eroding affection. Even in persuasion, leaving a thought unfinished can move another to fill the gap with their own reasoning, making the conclusion feel like their own discovery rather than your imposition. To practice this art is to understand rhythm, the rise and fall of speech, the interplay of revelation and silence, the dance between knowledge and wonder. It is to recognize that timing carries more force than volume, and that a truth given too early can be as damaging as a lie. Those who cultivate this sensibility carry an invisible authority. Others sense that behind their calm exterior lies a reserve of insight, of plans, of feelings yet to be expressed. That sense keeps them near, attentive, watchful, eager for the next moment, when the curtain will lift just enough to let another sliver of light through.